Well, President Trump lashing out at the leaders of Iran as evil and sick, effectively ripping up a temporary ceasefire and putting the potential for new strikes back on the table.
They hit a couple of ships, and so we hit them much harder. When they hit, we hit 10 times harder. You know, we hit much harder than they do. We have a lot better equipment than they do. We may even, somebody asked before, do you think you'll hit them tonight? I said, we might, yeah, we might. But when they hit, we hit, you know. It's what we use their language, we speak their language.
With that, let's bring in retired four-star General Jack Keane, chairman of the Institute for the Study of War and a Fox News senior strategic analyst. General, great to have you on the show, as always. The president says that he does not think the war will start again, and then he also says that he wants to finish the job. Does he mean finish the job diplomatically, sir?
Well, I think he's still going to try to do that. And, I mean, clearly, where we are, obviously very frustrated, you know, with the Iranians, and in my judgment, quite predictable who they are. I haven't believed for a minute that even though we're dealing with different players here, because we killed the other leaders, they very much represent the ideals of this regime and their diabolical, tyrannical, radical ideology. And I think that's where they are. They have had the Straits of Hormuz as a strategic objective for 47 years. And they've had four objectives. One, dominate and control the Middle East. Two, control the distribution of oil out of the Persian Gulf. Three, destroy Israel. Four, drive the United States out of the region. They have been in control somewhat of the Straits of Hormuz since March the 2nd, when they shut it down. So 4 months they have, in their minds, been in control. And they're not going to give this up without a fight, in my view. Economic pressure and diplomatic pressure will certainly be applied here, and I think they're going to stick to this and not back down. And it will likely lead to an acceleration of military operations to bend them to our will. I think that is the path we're on. The president's going to continue to negotiate. He has said that. He's obviously frustrated. We heard the rich language to describe that frustration. And we'll see what happens here. Economic pressure back on. We've slapped sanctions back on them. I don't think we necessarily should have taken them off at all until we have seen much more in terms of a change in their behavior. We haven't seen much change in behavior here whatsoever. So that's the path we're on. I think specifically what will happen is Admiral Cooper will continue to move ships down in the southern route off the coast of Oman. We were up to 40 or 50 ships before the attack began. We'll likely get back to there unless the Iranians interfere again. If they interfere again, we're going to begin to escalate and accelerate military operations. And it may likely lead to full major combat operations at some point. And
I think that leads to my next question here, General, because what fascinates me about this whole idea is that you have the United States going back in, and you have this ex-post by the Iranian lawmaker Ibrahim Rezai, who says, quoting here, Trump has once again spoken of occupying Karg Island. Come on, we're waiting for you, and we promise that not even a single American soldier will return alive. The fascinating part is not only are they violating the ceasefire by going after these ships in the Strait of Hormuz, but they're now taunting the president with messages.
Well, they've been doing that right from the outset. I mean, these guys are full of bluster, and that's been their pattern for almost 5 decades now. And they certainly talk a good game, but they don't execute anywhere near what they talk. But the reality is that, yes, this path we're on, we could also, the president has a couple of other options. He can return to the naval blockade and shut down what they're trying to do in terms of getting through the Straits of Hormuz. We'll see what the pattern is here. I think a lot of it is going to have to depend on where the Iranians are. Are they still going to try to interfere with what Admiral Cooper and CENTCOM is doing and passing ships through the Straits? Remember, in the MOU, what was the one thing that there was an agreement on in the MOU was the Straits of Hormuz. They would open it up, their part, and we would remove the naval blockade. What did we do? We removed the naval blockade. That was part of the deal. We gave our word. The president signed. We executed. And what have they done? Well, we've seen what they've done. They haven't given up control. That's the reality of it. That's the path we're on here. So the president has options here, more economic options. He has certainly more military options. And if they don't get bent to our will here in terms of complying with the MOU, then I think we're going to see more military operations for sure.
When the President General says that he may have to hit Iran tonight, we kind of noted that it is about 10:35 in the evening in the Middle East right now. Is that normally one of those early morning hours types of things? I mean, last night the strikes lasted about 4 hours, leading from 1 or 2 in the morning or midnight all the way till 3 or 4 in the morning in Middle Eastern time. Is that kind of the strategy here? These are early morning type assignments?
I don't know whether there was a planned operation for a second strike tonight, or whether President Trump was just throwing that out there for effect and letting them know my will hasn't changed here. I think it has a lot to do with that. He wants them to know that he's given them a warning. This is going to continue if your behavior doesn't change. I think that's what it was more about than anything else.
Yeah. The Wall Street Journal put this up. It says Iran is leveraging Khamenei's martyr-like legacy to rally support abroad. It goes on to say Iran has designed its week-long funeral for slain Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei not only as a show of defiance against the West, but to boost the late Ayatollah's religious stature among the more than 200 million Shia Muslims worldwide. Is this kind of a show? As you said, they are full of bluster. Is that what this is, to kind of give the world notice that, you know, this is a time for them to kind of, you know, thumb their nose at the United States?
Yeah, it's bigger than that, but that's part of the story here. I mean, they are emboldened ever since they took the Straits of Hormuz, and they believe the Americans changed their strategy from military operations to political and economic objectives. And we all understand what the reasons for that were. But from the Iranians' perspective, that has emboldened them. And what they're doing with the funeral, obviously they're demonstrating truly the numbers of Shia people who they're willing to arrange and get people into the streets to demonstrate the support for the Supreme Leader. I think a lot of this is staged because they're very good at doing it. But number two, they want to demonstrate to the region and to the world writ large that they're still here, that they have stood up to the United States and Israel, and they are still in power, and they're not going anywhere. And I think that is the major message that they're trying to demonstrate by this week-long adoration for the Supreme Leader. And believe me, most of the people in Iran, we know where they're coming from. 85, 90% of them oppose this regime. And don't be persuaded by tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands. There's 400,000 plus that prop up the regime alone, that work for them, that get salaries. They can generate people by the scores in doing something like this. And the same in Iraq. They can persuade the Iraqi militias there to get the people out and demonstrate for it. I'm not suggesting that there aren't some people that truly believe in Khomeini and what he stood for and the regime. Certainly there are, and I want to minimize that. But it's not on the scale that they're trying to. That's an exaggeration. What this is really about, we're in power, we're still in control here. We stood up to the United States and Israel.
General Jack Keane, great insight as always, sir. Great to have you on the show. Thank you.
Yeah, great talking to you. Thank you.
Well, White House Deputy Press Secretary Abigail Jackson is next.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube, and catch full shows streaming now on Fox One.